Hey guys, Jake here with a video, and today we are actually going to be going over Nezha one more time. However, we're going to go way more in depth than we were in the last video because not only have I learned a bit more about Nezha, but I have also tooled the builds around a little bit, so these three builds that I'm showing you today are going to be a little bit different from the last video. So we have three builds for you today. We have a tank build, we have a thermal sunder build, which is my personal favorite right now, and we have a slam build. Slam build is the one that I take to level cap consistently. I've run probably 4 or 5 level cap void cascades with this build, and it's very consistent, very strong. It's very, very hard to die with this thing. But we're going to jump into the tank build first. This is one of the hardest to kill things that I've come across in quite a while. There's multiple layers of survivability here. You have Overguard with Arcane Circumvent, you have just straight up tanking with adaptation, his 3 ability, which redirects damage. It's not a damage reduction, it is a redirection, which behaves differently. Omamori is another damage redirection, and instead of taking damage, you have a 50% chance of just straight up not taking it and actually healing instead. So, as you can imagine, this is going to be extremely hard to kill. I've got some Eximus heavy gunners going ready to go up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate these guys, and I'm just going to stand in the middle of them, and we're going to see how long it takes me to die, if that's even a thing. Grab some energy, Omamori, Warding Halo, roll through for Arcane Circumvent, and we're just going to stand here. The more damage you take, the more health your pool has. So as you can see, we're now up to almost 8 million EHP on my pool, which means it's redirecting all of the damage that I would receive to Overguard. It's actually redirecting it to the pool. It's not all of it, it's actually 90%, but pretty dang close, I suppose. Like, these are 170 Eximus units. These guys aren't a joke. They hurt, but I'm just really not taking damage here. So before this becomes messy, let's do that. And let's explain a little bit of what's going on. So here we have Nezha's abilities. Firewalker is movement and a status cleanse. Omamori, as I explained earlier, is a damage redirection, and there's a chance that you just straight up will not take damage 50% of the time. Warding Halo is another layer of protection, it's another damage redirection. You have a small window after you cast it, it says 3 seconds here, in order to absorb as much damage as possible, which will then be converted into HP, quote unquote, for the Warding Halo. Now, when your Warding Halo runs out, you'll be given sort of what's like a shield gate. The duration is a tiny bit shorter, in which case you will be able to recast Warding Halo, as you saw me doing earlier, which means it's practically impossible to die. Divine Spears is crowd control, which honestly, with how prevalent Overguard is in this game right now, Divine Spears is kind of a dead ability, but I I still really enjoy using it. It's just not very good against enemies with Overguard. So the next build's a little bit more specific. Um, it requires one thing, and that is a primer, and I like to use Epitaph, so I'm going to go over that. The other thing that I'm going to do is turn these guys to regular heavy gunners, because we do need to be able to CC them. I'm going to pause the AI just so I'm not getting shot at, but it doesn't actually make a difference in the performance. There's no stealth multipliers or anything that are triggered when you do that. So with my Epitaph Primer, Prime Fulmination is essentially unnecessary. I do recommend using an Expel mod because we're using DOT. We're using heat damage to do the majority of our damage. So you're going to really want either a Bane mod or you're going to want Roar, in which case we can't use Roar because we already have Thermal Sunder subsumed. So I have a Bane mod here. Obviously, maxing out these mods like Prime T to Charge will be better. Lethal Momentum maxed out would just be a little bit better, but I don't feel like slapping another Forma into this. You want Fortifier for specifically Overguard because of how problematic Overguard is for Divine Spears. It's just, it kind of neuters the entire ability. You need to be able to get rid of it, so this is my way of doing that. So our Epitaph is going to prime Viral Magnetic, and then it's going to prime Heat, which means Thermal Sunder is going to inherit those heat procs, and that's going to increase our damage exponentially. The key thing about this build is the Augment, Divine Retribution, and this is relevant both here and in the Slam build. So the gist of this is all of your status procs are spread among all the enemies that you spear, and the damage scales up. It increases the amount of damage. In this case, I'm running negative strength, so it's actually a little lower, but it's not relevant because of the interaction. Slam build is even lower strength, but again, I'll explain why it works the way that it does as I do it. As far as other important mods, Archon Vitality is not necessary, but is very helpful. You want a good amount of efficiency, you want a good amount of range, obviously, because you're room nuking, and growing power, I think, is just kind of the best option. Molt Augmented is awesome for longer missions, and Aegis is just for survivability. If you guys watch my survivability video, you know how this works. It's not particularly complicated. So I'm going to sim these guys up. I'm going to kind of explain as I do it, because it's easier to do it that way. First thing we're going to do is not have these guys be Xmas units, because I thought I changed that. Okay, let's try that again. So the first thing I'm going to do is cast Divine Spears. All these guys are speared up. It's a very short duration, and I'll explain why in a second. So we're going to cast Spears, we're going to shoot our Epitaph, prime 1, we're going to throw our 2, which gives them damage vulnerability, and then we will cast Thermal Sunder, which I'm not going to do because it's going to hit him right now. But the gameplay loop is 4, shoot, 2, 1. And as you can see, the damage is pretty exceptional, actually. You can scale this harder if you want to, hit Thermal Sunder more than once, but you don't need to. It's just kind of overkill if you do, to be honest. So what's happening here is Thermal Sunder proxy guaranteed heat status on enemies, and Archon Vitality does not double your heat procs, it actually just adds another one on the end of your heat proc. And the way that Divine Retribution works with statuses is the more enemies you spear, the more statuses you put on them, because each enemy shares its status with the other enemies that are speared. So if I spear 20 dudes, they're always gonna get 40 heat procs. See? Obviously, spearing more enemies would be even better, but we can only simulate 20 here, so. But 2 of those 80 heat procs, and you just saw 1.5 million on each of them at the end of spears. And the other important thing about Divine Retribution as an augment is when you recast or when the duration ends, all of your spears explode, and with the Divine Retribution augment, all of the damage is kind of expedite suffering into one big chunk of damage at the very end. So all of those 40 or 80 heat procs, however many you're getting on those enemies, is going to get condensed down into one massive chunk of damage, and that's just going to absolutely decimate pretty much anything that you can come across. That's how that works. And then finally we're going to go into the super fun, super effective slam build. And this is frankly kind of the reason that I started playing Nezha again. And he is very quickly becoming my favorite Warframe with this build in particular. So we're using the same idea with Divine Retribution. We're instead doing Toxin this time. So we're going to use Coda Mire. It is a Coda weapon, obviously, and the super unique trait about it is that it has a guaranteed Toxin proc on all slam attacks, which we're taking very, very full advantage of with this augment here. So the rest of what you're seeing is survivability with Aegis and shield recharge, Circumvent for overguard to couple with Warding Halo and Olomori for damage redirection, Rolling Guard for status cleanse in case I get unlucky and don't have energy for Firewalker, Ready Steel for combo, Cunning Drift for range, along with Overextended and Stretch for range, 0 strength because it's unnecessary, 0 duration because we want spears to not last very long because we're trying to condense damage into one big instance. Including expertise, again, high efficiency is great, and low duration is also great for us. The other important aspect here is the Coda Mire, and melee affliction specifically. So when enemies are speared, they are considered to be knocked down or flung. Now, when you hit them with a melee while they are speared, for some reason the game says, okay, these enemies have been flung by a melee attack, and that is how we're able to proc afflictions in this way. Everything else is just a very standard slam melee build. Sacrificial Steel and Pressure are really good for slam because the flat damage buff is just massive. The 2-time crit chance for heavy attacks is insane. Seismic Wave for slam damage. Dispatch Overdrive is really nice for movement speed after you slam. Melee Elementalist is pretty obvious in my opinion because we're doing a full status damage build. And I think the only thing that I would really recommend swapping around if I were to, maybe instead of Toxic Blight you could run a Bane. Maybe. Or even take out Prime Fever Strike because Toxin is the only status you're proccing. And run a Bane here because you'll get way more damage if you do that. But I take this to level cap and it's not a problem, so I don't really think you need to bother, to be honest. The setup's going to be the same. We're going to spear the dudes, but instead of proccing Thermal Sunder on them, we're just going to slam. And they just dissolve, kind of. There's not really much that needs to be done. I think my favorite thing about this build is the fact that I can do all of this in one really nice motion. And we're talking multiple millions on each of those guys, each time. So the last thing that I wanted to go over with this is the Archon shards, because 4 of these are absolutely necessary, 1 of them is not. Your absolutely necessary shards are going to be your 2 energy max, because I do not run primed flow in this build specifically. This is the entire reason that I run those energy shards, is the Sunder build. Because if I don't have more base energy than this, I will not be able to cast Thermal Sunder more than once, basically. Casting Feast Shard, in my opinion, is absolutely required. 2 is like minimum for me, because Nezha, despite being a speedy Warframe, has casting speed delay issues. Specifically, the problem, and it's good that I have this build on actually, comes with using Divine Spears and trying to cast another ability, which is why the rotation for this is actually 4 shoot and then cast other abilities, because firing a weapon, for some reason, ends the very long casting animation for Divine Spears early. So what happens, I'll show you the difference real quick. So I'm just going to tap 4 and then I'm going to spam my 1 and we'll see how long it takes. So there was a little bit of a delay with that. And now what I'll do is I'll tap for shoot and then hit my 1, and we'll see how quick it comes out. Yeah, it's almost instant. If I can actually get the timing down a little bit better because I'm recording. Let's see. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, as you can see, it cuts out the delay really, really well. It makes a big difference. It's going to help your actual gameplay flow quite a bit. Anyway, so here we have the tank build. I'm just going to do one final mod run through real quick with you guys. The sunder build here. And finally, we have the level cap consistent slam build. Important weapons here that we have are Epitaph Prime for priming, specifically with Fortifier to deal with Overguard for the Sunder build. And we have, for the Slam, we have Coda Meyer. You can also use Archititron if you wanted to, if you didn't want to go the whole Coda route. I'll actually show you the build on that as well. This one's super straightforward. It's just Afflictions again. The build is almost actually exactly the same, except this one has Galvanized Steel and Reflex as opposed to Sacrificial Pressure and Steel. I find that it's more comfortable to run the Galvanized mods here, specifically because of this initial combo is really nice with the Archititron. But other than that, the build's almost exactly the same. The gameplay is precisely the same. There's no difference here. I just personally prefer the Coda Meyer. It's a little more fun. I also like kind of the gross tech rot aspect of it. I think it's really cool. Yeah, that's going to be it for the video today. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments. DM me in Discord if you want to, and catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.